I'll be perfectly honest. I have no ideas for this intro. I'm gonna blame the devil, I guess. That's all I got. I know it's pathetic. So, The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. It's the third Conjuring in this franchise, the Conjuring section of the franchise. And this one is not directed by James Wan. It is co-written by James Wan, but this one is directed by Michael Chaves. I don't know how you say his last name. He was the director of a Conjuring spin-off movie, The Curse of La Llorona. I have not been drinking. I just do not know how to pronounce people's last names. True fact. In this one, this is the true story of Arnie, who is accused of murdering someone, and he says that the devil, a demon, made him do it, was inside of him, and he killed this guy because the devil was there. That's sort of the movie. The Warrens are investigating this and trying to prove that this is true. That's kind of the movie, I guess. And this review is going to be a teeny tiny different than the other two. The other two were very similar in the sense that I thought the first two are very technically fantastic. The horror of the movie's fantastic. I did find both of them a little slow towards the beginning, but as the movie went on, the tension built, the horror built, and I loved the first two Conjurings. This one is a little different. The opening of this movie is an exorcism, so we get right in on the action. The exorcism is of a 8-year-old boy whose demonic presence is transferred into Arnie. And that's how Arnie gets this demonic presence that comes to him. And then this is how he's accused of murder and yada, yada, yada. So for starters, I really did like the opening of this movie. This is something that was different than the other two Conjurings in the sense that it opened big. It didn't just build to something. It was there. We have this exorcism, which does bring me to my first negative in the sense that there is some CGI in this movie. And my problem with the second Conjuring is there's some CGI that doesn't look the best. And in this one, there's some CGI that doesn't look the best and is an extremely unrealistic CGI, which is really a bit of a bump in the road in the sense that the next thing that pops up in the next scene is the title card in which it says this is based on a real story. But the opening with the CGI was not at all real. And that brings me to my real first problem, because the CGI is nothing huge in this movie. But there's definitely moments. But the first thing that really does bug me about this movie is 100% not realistic at all anymore. It is just semi-based on events. I guess you could kind of say that for the first two, but this one really goes hardcore into Fantasyland. This trial really did happen. There was an Arnie who did believe that this demonic presence that made him kill his landlord, and the Warrens really did help out in with the trial. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of other things in this movie that are not real, which is something that I can kind of let go, but in the sense, comparing the first two in this franchise, this movie goes really off the rails sometimes with its realism. Now, once again, technically, this movie is fantastic. You look at the cinematography, you look at the score, you look at the acting, you look at the sound editing, the sound mixing, all of that is done beautifully. And I can honestly say this movie did scare me. I'm not going to say it scared me as much as the first two, and something great about the first two is there was jump scares, but they were jump scares that were real jump scares, not fake ones in which someone pops up and it just freaks you out to freak you out because someone popped up even though that person's a nice person and it's not scary. In the first two Conjurings, if there was a jump scare, there was something legit scary there, and it did scare you because there was a scary thing there, not just a jump scare. This one does fake jump scares at times, and it takes you out and just I hate fake jump scares. That's all I can say, I guess. Something that was also different about this movie compared to the other two is the fact that there was quite a bit of humor in this movie. Quite a few funny lines, specifically said mostly by Patrick Wilson's character, Ed Warren. And I would say about half of it was actually good. I liked some of the comedic bits that happened. And then there were other times that it was just unnecessary parts, and there was a comedic line and then just immediately super serious stuff preceding that, and it didn't work for me. I did love part of that humor though. In this movie, there's kind of this side plot of how Ed has failing health. His health isn't what it used to be, and because of that, I think his humor worked in the sense that he is going through tough times with his health and just the stress of this case and yada yada yada. It's all intertwined that it did work for most portions of the movie, but there are also times where I just didn't like it. Michael Chaves, however the heck you say his name, he is a decent director in this movie. I'm not going to say this movie's poorly directed, but it is not at all the craft and the work that James Wan put into the first two Conjurings, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not terrible. It's just not quite as good as the first. At the end of the day, though, I really did like the pacing of this movie and how this movie was structured, in the sense that this was more of a murder mystery mixed in with some horror elements, whereas the first two are 100% just haunted house. And I like that this one did something a teeny tiny bit different, and I did find all the characters, Ed and Lorraine, once again, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, they did great. And the new characters with Arnie and his family, his girlfriend's brother, who's goes through the Exorcist at the beginning of the movie. I found them to be all great characters, likable characters. I liked them. There wasn't as much character development as the first two, but I still found myself liking those characters, even though we didn't have as much development as the first two. In the end, I would say this is another solid sequel in the Conjuring franchise. There are reviews online for this movie that are not as strong. A lot of people actually are not liking this movie, and I'm honestly kind of confused on it. People are saying this movie's kind of boring and not scary, which I'm going to have to disagree with. I found this movie still quite scary. I didn't find this boring. I found the pacing to be phenomenal in this movie compared to the first two. And the pacing is not an issue for me for this movie. In the end, it's more of CGI, some unrealistic things that happen, and then just some ridiculous things that happen throughout the movie that I just didn't buy. At the end of the day, though, I think I like this one just as much as I like the second. It's not as good as the first, but I would put it on par with the second. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this movie the same rating I gave the second one. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So what did you think of this third Conjuring film? Did you hate it as much as some people are online? Or did you like me and you just enjoyed yourself? Comment below, let me know, and tell me what movies you're interested in seeing. And until then, I'll see you next time.